This episode of the Coarse Grind Podcast has been brought to you by Central Sports and Graphics Incorporated, family-owned and operated screen printing and embroidery business located in a historic storefront on Old Berwick Road in the heart of Espy. They've been doing screen printing for over 20 years. They have high-quality product at a low price. Be sure to check them out. Central Sports and Graphics Incorporated, 570-784-1212. Now, on to the show.
Okay. Hi, this is Chef Brian Young from Top Chef Kentucky and Station Family and Barbecue in Cincinnati, Ohio. You're listening to Shawn Rosler and the Coarse Grind Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is episode number 104 of the Coarse Grind Podcast. With you as always this evening, host, creator, Shawn Rosler. How is everyone doing this evening? Could it possibly be? Is it for real? Am I actually going to take a step away, voluntary or involuntary, who cares, from the fountain of Bravo and its Top Chef flavored Kool-Aid? Well, listeners, it is true, for now anyways. But oddly enough, it was those very guests and following their Instagrams, Facebooks, and so on that led me to tonight's guest by way of, seriously, the infamous, hey, how does Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg know I like that ad? And in perusing their site and liking their page, Extreme Culinary Outfitters, I realized that not only was the brand incredible, but the brain and the mission behind it was a story to tell for sure. Born and raised in Tallahassee, Florida, tonight's guest spent summers with family in Mobile, Alabama, and New Orleans, Louisiana. The unique flavors of these regions have had strong influence in his cooking, and he continues to use his own family recipes with Southern and Creole flavors, including his country succotash, seafood Creole, and country stewed beans. His cuisine has been described as clean and unrestricted, with a focus on creating perfected traditional dishes balanced with innovative twists. His enthusiasm and creativity are a true testament to his passion for his craft and of his goal of creating a great experience for each and every guest. In 2010, our guest created Extreme Culinary Outfitters, aka ECO, a clothing line for the restaurant and hospitality industry, feeling that the industry needed a brand that pushed positivity and self-improvement. How true, how true. As if he wasn't busy enough, tonight's guest took on the position of Executive Chef Director of the Honda Center in 2013 as well. Here's where I can actually start to relate to him. He's a devoted husband, proud dad of 4 kids. Sure, had to show me up by one, didn't you? But quite literally, the rest has left me in awe as I read it, and I, for one, cannot wait to learn more about him. So enough of the fanboy bullshit. Ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between, our guest this evening, the owner, operator, main designer of Extreme Culinary Outfitters, and the Executive Chef Director of the Honda Center, Chef Joseph Jo-Jo Doyle. How's it going, Chef?
Oh, it's going freaking phenomenal. That intro just left me speechless, man.
I'm breathing.
That was awesome. I'm feeling really proud of myself.
You should, man. You should. That's a resume to certainly to shine on.
I'm going to play that intro on the days when I don't want to go into work. I'm like, that's my pep rally now. From now on.
Well, as we discussed earlier, there's no dimes being made here, so just going out to YouTube and listen away, my friend.
Oh, yes, for sure, right?
Awesome.
Awesome. Real jobs.
Yeah, man. So, again, busy life, crazy life, but thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us this evening. Folks new to the show, folks with terrible short-term memories like myself, starters, mains, and afters. We're going to take a look at where the guest in question came from, what they bring. Mains, we're going to talk about what they're doing now, what they hope to be doing. And afters, we're going to talk about a little bit more irreverent topics, a little bit more irreverent questions, a little more off the cuff, but no one's been injured in 103 episodes. I don't see any reason that would happen tonight, but there's your liability release statement. Without further ado, Chef Jo-Jo Doyle, talk to me about where and what you grew up eating.
Oh, man, that is... I was just talking about this Saturday night. It was strange. We just finished. We had UFC. We hosted UFC. I think it was 242 with Daniel Cormier and Stipe 2 at the Honda Center, where I'm currently the executive chef and director of operations. So we're sitting there wrapping up, and this lady was telling a story about how grandparents would make, farm and grow vegetables. And I was like, man, that's exactly how we grew up. In Tallahassee, I spent the school year at home, and as soon as the summer, as soon as school stopped and the summer started, I would go and stay with my grandparents in Mobile, Alabama, and I had cousins and aunts and uncles in New Orleans. So basically, my grandfather grew up on a farm in West Virginia, Mount Storm to be exact, and he would put a breakfast on that would, it was huge. It would have grits, tomatoes, toast, sausage, bacon, fried eggs. There'd be country ham, and there'd be some sort of gravy, like either sausage gravy or coffee gravy. It didn't matter if it was red-eye gravy or what. And that was just breakfast. And then at lunch, my grandmother would start cooking, and there would be a minimum of 8 to 12 items. That would go from country pole beans to, the fresh tomatoes would be tossed with cucumbers and onions for a salad. There'd always be some sort of salad, then there'd be stewed meat and chicken, and you basically just ate all day. Now, at dinner time, it was a very light feast. You'd only have maybe a few items, and it was kind of much lighter, but you ate heavy during the day and light at night. And you kind of just take that and extrapolate it through all the family reunions. I mean, food is our family. Like when you say I use my family recipes, I've used them because in 92, when my grandmother passed away, my uncle took all of her favorite recipes when I tried to make a cookbook out of it, and he gave me all of the recipes. And I had his secretary at Ole Miss, because he was professor at the time, type them up. So I've used these recipes throughout my life. So it's a very down home type style of cooking. Everything we farmed or raised, so we didn't waste food. So that's kind of the mentality. Now, I can make some really high-end food that I didn't really understand gourmet cooking until much later in life, but I grew up with simple flavors that were really good.
Yeah, but see, and that's a beautiful point you make there, and I think it speaks to anyone who's actually, gotten their heels in. I think starting with that high-end cuisine is overrated. I think getting that foundation is what's key.
Yeah, I just recently had dinner at a restaurant, and it was really fine-tuned.
Yeah.
But the flavors were missing. The presentation was off the charts, but the flavor wasn't there, and I was really, really let down.
Yeah.
So I've always said flavor before presentation, and I know it gets me in trouble. It's like one of our most controversial shirts we have.
Oh, I love that. Wait, you have that as a shirt?
Yeah, there's a shirt we have, and it has flavor with a line, and then it says presentation. And in the line, it says over. So I've always kind of it's great that it looks nice, but you really, if you bite into it and it doesn't taste well, or it doesn't mix, or it doesn't hit the spot, then I think you missed the mark. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I don't know. And you can go back to your old college dating stories and say, yeah, I dated some 8s and 9s, and trust me, they're a little crazy. So, it kind of goes with the territory. It doesn't matter how it presents. It matters how it finishes.
Right,
matters
there's always the scale.
Exactly.
Not, right?
Precisely. Precisely.
Yeah, so that's where I came. I mean, and in Tallahassee, there wasn't, there was not like this. It definitely was not. I mean, we were lower middle class, and going out to a restaurant, and our family was going to Morrison's, which was like a cafeteria through steam tables.
Mm-hmm.
And we, that would be like going out, or Sonny's barbecue.
Right.
So we rarely went to I don't even know if there was there was the Brown Derby, and I remember that was basically a high-end steakhouse.
Yeah.
So from where I started, I guess as a child, to where I am now, I've seen a little bit of everything.
That's awesome. That's phenomenal. So as a child, again, from what you said about there not being anything wasted, I think it's safe to say that you probably weren't a picky eater, that you pretty much ate what was put in front of you when you grew up?
Yeah, or you went hungry.
Nice.
My grandparents were on a very tight budget. Like we would stand in line to get our cheese, kind of thing. So
yep.
The budget was tight, and there were times when we woke up. My grandfather woke up really early, and we would go out in the morning, and we would do some chores, and we'd come back and have breakfast, and then we would go fishing because we lived on a river. And as a young child, I would pour a bowl of cereal and start to eat it, and then my grandfather would be like done with his, and he would go out. And I wanted to be with him, so I would just get up and run out to the, to the river or the bank or whatever he was doing. Mm-hmm. And then when I came back inside and it was time to, have lunch, mm-hmm. my grandmother was like, "Oh, no, you can't have lunch until you finish your cereal, baby."
Ah, nice.
And, that's an hour and 2 hours later, 3 hours later. And, you only have to do that a couple of times to eat soggy Raisin Bran before you realize that we don't waste food in the house.
Soggy Raisin Bran's the worst.
Oh, yeah. And it wasn't even Raisin Bran, brother. It was it wasn't Post. We didn't have anything with a label on it.
No.
It came in a white box and it said Raisin Bran, with black letters.
Right on. I know. Man, that is...
we didn't waste food. Nice. And, if you didn't finish your salad after lunch or whatever it was there for you for dinner. So her food cost was in the negatives.
That's such a cool dichotomy, I guess, for lack of a better word, because, you look at it from one perspective and it's this, it's definitely financially maybe strapped, and yet you talk about it like it is a rich experience. It's such a beautiful balance of the two, and it speaks to the fact that here you are now working with this, for a living. This is your life. Looking back at those frames, if we can take individual frames out of the movie that was your childhood, what foods do you miss the most? I realize you could probably recreate them to an extent, but there's got to be one or two that really kind of leave you hurting a little bit. I wish I could have this again. What are they?
Oh, that's so easy. One would be my dad's mom's gumbo. Mm. We just, on ECO, we have a couple of shows. We do Shift Drink and we do Leave It on the Line. And Shift Drink on our YouTube channel, we just got 1,500 subscribers. Woo. And my son films it, and when we produce all this stuff as a family. And he was like, "Dad, you got 1,500. We need to do something special." So we went back and we made my grandmother's gumbo recipe. Oh. So that was my grandmother Peg's recipe. That's one thing I missed right off the bat. And then basically a lunch made by my grandmother, Nay. And I know that sounds like her real name was Elaine, but we couldn't say that, or I couldn't, because, I had to list. And so I to my mom. And so I grew up calling her Nay. So Nay, anything she made was, phenomenal. Fried okra from out of the garden, stewed pole beans with country ham, a cucumber salad just made by her. I mean, any of these type of really simple things, even a tuna fish salad sandwich, you think it's so mundane, but just the way that she did it, it was always delicious. Absolutely. And then any breakfast that my grandfather made, his name was, I called him Dead D, because my mom couldn't say daddy, so she called him Dead D. Yeah. So, these are all these southern, nicknames that you get, right? Look at me, I'm called JoJo, so I guess I can't really, I'm not too far from that. Anything he made for breakfast, he would make this red-eye gravy. Oh. He would get, it was so good. And buckwheat pancakes with syrup when he made those. It was just a different texture, and as a kid, I didn't fully appreciate it, because it was so different than a white, fluffy pancake. Yeah. But I grew to love them in a certain way. When he was coming up, this is the kind of guy he was, or when he grew up, the only two things that they bought from a store was sugar and flour. God, and salt. And I'm sorry, three things. It was salt, sugar, and flour. Everything else they raised on the farm, or they stored and pickled, or hunted. That's incredible. They didn't have ice boxes. They didn't have freezers or refrigerators. And that was such an infatuation for me, when I was at culinary school. It's how in the hell did you guys, survive? Because I'm walking into a room that's refrigerated with food in it. How did you do it when, you had a cellar, you had a room underneath your house? So I've always, been kind of interested in that. And that's a long-winded answer to a very interesting question, but those are the things that I miss.
No, that's not...
My grandparents' cooking, most importantly, probably, the gumbo or the crab omelets, things like that. But the gumbo, for sure... there's a very poignant story that we talk about in that video where she had passed away, and I'd driven over to Mobile from Tallahassee. My aunt was cleaning up, and as soon as somebody dies in an Irish family and now in the South, like all you do is just make food.
Yep.
You just start cooking.
Yep.
You just empty the cupboards and cook and people come. And I was sitting in the kitchen and my aunt was cooking and she's like, she goes, I have some gumbo on the stove, on the back stove if you want it. So I pour a bowl and she's like, that's Peg's gumbo. That'll be the last pot of Peg's gumbo that you ever have.
Damn.
So like, dude, that to me right there, that gives me like chill bumps.
Yep.
I mean, because food to me is kind of life.
I hear you. I hear you 100%. And that's, again, when people will ask me, why are you doing a food show? What the hell can you talk about? Listen, as soon as I get somebody talking about it and you see them look off into space and they think about the room they were in or the taste that was there, the sound they heard, like they're gone and they get it. Like there's that plug-in. There's no escaping that, man. There's no escaping that connection. And Jesus, man, it sounds to me like you and I are cut from similar, albeit differently trained cloth in that department. Now, this is going to be a tough one for you, well, to an extent, because I think I get an idea of who really pushed you, but looking at your culinary influences coming up, if you had to name one as being the greatest culinary influence on you, who I would imagine pushed you towards culinary training, who would it be?
Oh, dude, that's a tough one. And you would obviously think that, it must have been your grandmother, right?
That's where I was going. I'll admit, that's where I was going.
Like when we were talking before we started really getting into the show, like you grew up watching PBS, right? Yeah. And so it was Yan Can Cook and, The Frugal Gourmet, Julia Child. And, I also watched Justin Wilson. I don't know if you watched him.
Oh, shit. I'm sorry. Justin Wilson, God rest your soul. I'm sorry I neglected to include you. He is who I learned how to measure a teaspoon from. If you didn't learn to measure a teaspoon in your goddamn hand, right in the middle of it, and I'll be damned if that's not like 1 or 2 grains off from a teaspoon of salt.
And like that. When I was younger, I didn't want any, like, cooking was just, like, kind of what we did. I never thought about it as a profession. I really didn't. Mm-hmm. And as all I wanted to do was stand up, to be honest. Like, nice. I wanted to that's all I really wanted to do was be a stand-up comedian and, like, go and, like, tell jokes and not really work. And, well, that's what I thought it would be. And, my dad and I started a company together when I was in high school, and that was really cool. I liked working for myself. And Food Network came on, and I was like, I really need a trade, because I'm never going to be a 9-to-5 office guy. I found that out really quickly. And it just I just thought, it'd be really cool if I could cook. And my grandparents and my parents were like, okay, well, you need to get a degree in something.
Right.
So I went to culinary school, and I really have to say it was probably my father and my mom who kind of instilled that work ethic that were like, okay, if you're gonna do something, do it well and love to do it. So I mean, it was like a hodgepodge. I guess I'm a mutt in life anyway, so I couldn't just say, hey, this is the one person that changed my complete culinary career. I worked with some really amazing chefs throughout it. But growing up and always being surrounded by food, it would probably have to be the family. I just had a really romantic idea what it'd be like to work in the restaurant industry. I totally fucked that up big time. Like, I thought it was going to be like a family reunion because, my aunt's an amazing cook. My uncles are awesome at cooking. They all have their own specialty dish that they make, And I was like, oh, well, you just open this restaurant and it's just a constant party where all your friends and family come and buy food from you. That's what I thought it would be. I was totally...
Oh, you poor thing, you.
Yeah, I was like, and my family's going to work with me in the business and we're going to own our own place. It's going to be amazing. How hard is it going to be? Because it's just... all you're doing is making food. And like my previous job was like in construction and doing all this crazy, it was really a hard job. Right. I then it's going to be cool. It is cool, but it's freaking hard.
Yep, it is. And, I think we can go so far as to invoke his His Highness Tony Bourdain in saying, he's the first one that really sounded the alarm on that and saying, like, you're romanticizing it. Look, here's the facts on how many restaurants fail their first year. Here's this, here's that. And yet here we all are who, I don't know, are always, a little bit twisted that we, I romanticize it. My wife and I just went out to dinner on a date without the kids, and almost the entire goddamn time, we talked about opening a restaurant while we sat in a restaurant. Like, that's twisted. What are we doing? And yet, it's that imagery, and it doesn't affect everybody, but those who it affects, those who have had food influence them earlier on, like yourself, it seems like you fall into it.
What you think is it's going to be like this. And, I've interviewed thousands of culinary students over the years, like, literally. When I was at the chef at Churchill Downs, and we'd interview a lot of students to come out and do an internship. And I've talked to hundreds. I even try to talk to the culinary school here, or one of them called the Culinary Lab in Tustin. Mm-hmm. And everybody wants to open their own place, brother.
Yep.
Like that's what they set out to do, because it seems like it's going to be amazing. Like no one feel the feeling of fulfillment that you get when you make something from scratch that you put your soul into, literally, like you feel like you put your soul in it and serve it to somebody. When you watch them enjoy it, it's the most addictive drug you can find.
Yeah.
The problem is that the industry, and I love this. I love this industry. I love everything about it. The good, the bad, the nasty, and the awful. I love it because I don't think you can have the good without the nasty. It's ever evolving, and it leaves people behind, and it picks people up. It's rough, but it's a customer service-based industry, and it's a business. But we all think we're artists, so we struggle with it.
Yep.
And everybody thinks that's not going to happen to them. Oh, that won't happen to me because my food's that much better, all of that. And I've fallen into it, you know what I mean? I've opened a lot of restaurants, but I've closed just as many, if not more.
Yep. It's that, but like without that sensation, without that, this is unique, this is great, this is amazing, I don't think you could take that step. So it's almost like a catch-22, damned if you do, damned if you don't, but not really. It's more like, you have to feel X way to, I don't know. It's such a duality that I've never been able to explain, and yet people continue to do it day in and day out. And those who are good, you said it perfectly. It's like a drug in the arm. It's like going up and performing stand-up or performing on stage and getting that buzz from the crowd. But when that buzz falls off, where do you go?
Well, I mean, that's also part of the Kitchen Confidential, right?
Oh,
I mean, like
totally.
we just dropped a shirt on Bourdain's birthday called The Example, and it's a T-shirt done by Dan Fredrickson. He did this monumental piece where it's chapters of his book, and the words are just his face. And it's it was a very difficult shirt to print. Yeah. It's amazing. It's called The Example. And Dan wanted to call it The Example because there's so many examples of Tony that are Anthony. I call him Anthony because I never got a chance to meet him. There's so many people that got to meet him.
Yeah.
And I'm so, he was a big influence based off a book. And then, to be honest, I was like, he went and did all these shows, and he, lived the life that a lot of us wanted to live. So I was like, man. And he never apologized. He was just an amazing character. And to be so tortured, I think that's part of the beauty of, why he was able to say what he was able to say. We're all, tortured in our own way in this industry.
Yeah.
I've said it for years, and there's something, if you are in this business long enough, there's something wrong with you. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying you're damaged. I'm just saying that you're a little bit, and I'm including myself. There's nothing perfect about me. I'm as messed up as they get.
You're right.
And you become, the business is who you are. And
sure.
I mean, your introduction to me is interesting, right? Because you talk about ECO, and you talk about, being the chef at the Honda Center and the director of Operations Aja. All of those things are who I am. I'm also a dad. I'm trying to be the best husband I can be.
Right.
I'm also trying to, help and influence the industry in different ways. And, this weekend I was surprisingly enough, which I don't get to do that much anymore, cooking my ass off on a Saturday for the UFC.
Yeah.
So, like, all of these things are still who I am. And, I mean, a lot of rust was falling off my shoulders on Saturday because, they don't also tell you, and this is the most fucked up thing about our business, is when you start out as a cook, they go, okay, you want to own your own place? They rarely tell you that the further you go up the ladder or with responsibility, the further you get away from cooking.
Yep. I've heard that so many times over. And, when those rungs go out from under you, you're the one that has to kind of fall back on it and cover.
Oh, you have to know how to cook, but you can't be cooking. Like, you have to be able to fix the problems for sure. Like, that 100% is like your main job is making sure other people don't screw it up. Like, you constantly have to be thinking about, well, in my world, and like where I operate. And I guess I operate, I've learned more in the past, 9 or 10 years doing sports and entertainment than I did inside smaller high-end restaurants. And I'm still trying to make super high-end food at a higher volume, but I have to trust people. And the best way I can describe it is like you studied all semester to take a calculus test. But then when it's time for the test to be taken, you're asking someone else to take it for you.
Yep. No, you're absolutely right.
And you have to kind of you have to trust them to take it. And you're supposed to have taught them as much as you can, but you've been studying for it. This is your exam every time it goes out.
Right. Someone who came in like a week before the test, and you got to show them that in that 1 week. You had the semester. Yep. You're giving it in a week. Now, all right. So, true story, and this is completely off the rails. I don't give a shit at this point. There's an episode where I recap my visit to Hudson Valley Brewing. This is when Beth Oretsky, Grobich, and I really kind of friended up, and she asked me to come over and guest chef a gig at Hudson Valley Brewing or over in New York. I said, cool. And I got there, and I'll never forget this, and I've told Michael since. I'm there, I'm kind of hanging out, having a couple drinks, getting ready to start prepping the night before, and in rolls Chef Michael Pardis, head of Asian Studies, CIA Hyde Park, and I just kind of excuse myself from the room for a minute, and I hear some, what do you mean he's not a fucking chef? I'm like, oh God, what did I get myself into?
Oh, shit.
And so we prepped till 3 a.m. I slept 3 hours. We got up at 6. We loaded everything in the car. We were doing both a breakfast service and a lunch service. Very Asian influenced, congee for breakfast, and then a couple offerings for lunch. But I spent 12 hours in a walk-in beer cooler prepping and putting together a brat mi, which is a banh mi with a cold smoked bratwurst. And we had made the pickle the night before, and I will never forget, speaking to that, come in a week before and take the final exam. I get about 5 minutes worth of explanation that morning on how to put it together. And I get my ingredients, and I get a cart, and I go in the walk-in, and I'm literally just like sitting on a case of beer, and I start to look at the ingredients. I go, oh shit, I don't remember how to make this. Because I just been shown it. And so I'm sitting there, I'm kind of hovering over it. In comes Pardis. And I look at it, and he looks at me, and he kind of like bites his bottom lip, and he looks down in front of me, looks at me, looks down in front of me, looks at me, goes, what are you doing in here? I said, chef, I don't. Do you remember how to make this? I said, no, chef. And he looks at me, and he grabs my chin, and he pulls it up to his, and he goes, watch me. And I watch it, and believe me, if I've ever been on tilt before, it was that moment. And I'll be damned if I didn't put 84 out that door before we were completely out of ingredient. And they were all uniform. I didn't get a good job or anything until 84 went out the door. He comes back in. He goes, are we out? I said, yes, chef. He goes, good, grab a beer. That was it. Discussion over. Discussion over. I'm like, and yet that's the twisted shit that I tell people. And they're like, you went and you did that for fun? I said, yeah, actually I did.
So, it was awesome.
There you go.
It was exhilarating, and it was like challenging, and it didn't allow you to settle.
That's just it. That's exactly it. So, Yeah, I think whether you're,
That's
kind of a Bush League podcast
story.
host or you're an incredibly successful executive chef director where the UFC just had a pay-per-view, I don't know. I think we all kind of bring some damage to the table. That we kind of like getting beat up a little bit.
You can't look, and one of my favorite thing, and I love what you do. I was so ecstatic that when you messaged us and said, "Hey, would you be on the show?" And I was like, "I'd love to, because I love talking about interstate." And like my favorite thing is, right now is to leave it on the line, is where I pull some of the chefs that I've worked with in Orange County, and we just talk. We just have some beers and we just talk about where they came from, just kind of like and to hear why they do it, But the one thing that makes me love the industry more is it doesn't give a shit where you're from, what you like to do, what color you are, it just wants performance.
Yep.
In the grand scheme of things, the kitchen doesn't care. It just wants performance. No. But that's also the rub.
Yep.
That's also what eats your ass up. The grind is the tough part. So it's why people run 100 miles. Yep. It's why the 200 miles, the new 100 mile. And it's probably why I'm obsessed with, one day running a 50K or a 100 miler. It's what I talk about to see what I'm made of.
Yeah.
It's stupid. And that's probably why I was able to do as many, there's guys that have done more Kentucky Derbies than I have now, but it's probably why I was able to survive it. Those type of events are the ones that stretch you so thin where you think you're going to fall apart.
Yep. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. I think it's a matter of can you do this? Can I do this? And damn, man, if there's ever been more evidence that you have, I mean, the fact that when I read the Honda Center as I'm going over your bio, and I'm like, oh, cool, Honda Center, wonder where that is. It didn't even click for me, which is awful. I admit the last couple of pay-per-views have lost me. And then when you just kindly remind me of that, I'm like, oh, really now? Like, that's an incredible gap to cover, for sure.
Well, it's not even to be honest, sports and entertainment is not even what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I wanted to be, I wanted my own restaurant. That's what I wanted. I didn't want anything but that. And then my wife, Gina, who's like the rock, she's the reason why I'm still standing. Right. She basically was like, I'm tired of running out of insurance. You know what we need?
Oh, fair.
We need insurance. We're on our third kid. Why don't you go out there and get a job and we can get the heck out of South Florida? And so I found myself working at American Airlines Arena in Miami after having an amazing, I wanted to go up to Atlanta. I wanted to be, we wanted to get out of South Florida because it was just, prices were rising. It was getting expensive. And we're like, okay, where can we raise our kids to where we find a great value? So we're thinking, Atlanta's got some great restaurants. Well, the NHL went on strike, and I interviewed with a guy, and he's like, listen, NHL just went on strike. I can't hire you, buddy of mine. We're looking for a chef in Miami, and I know you wanted to get out of Miami, but you could still, we're still looking. Shaq just got hired. He's going to play for the Miami Heat. And I was like, okay, okay, I'll interview. And what's crazy, what blows my mind about the story is that I sat in the reason why I got the call or the interview is because my best bud in culinary school went to work for Levy Restaurants. We were in a class. This is how small the industry is, and I know you and I were talking about it. We were in class. This crazy chef came in named Gil Logan, and he was opening American Airlines Arena. And he's like, I need people to have fire in the belly. And he gave this huge speech. And my buddy Ronald James goes, that sounds awesome. And I was like, fuck that. That's like bulk cooking. That's like boxes of chicken tenders and French fries. That's stupid. I'm going to go work at a James Beard restaurant. That's what I'm going to do because I'm going to be fancy.
Of course.
And, 5 years later of me opening and closing and, coming to my restaurant with the keys didn't work because the partners ran out of money and the books were just all the crazy restaurant stories. Here I am applying at Levy Restaurants because that guy that was sitting next to me, Ronald, brother from another mother, went and got that job. So here I am at American Airlines Arena walking in and interviewing, to basically take care of the family and starting over. I took a salary cut, figuring to pay off in the long run, and then from American Airlines Arena, we traveled and opened different properties and, like for openers. And then I ended up in Kentucky at Louisville.
God, man. I mean, you want to talk about a full, I say a full journey, but it's not like you're done, dude.
The part that when I'm totally talking over you, but I forgot about the part when I got to Kentucky at Churchill Downs.
Yeah.
The chef of Churchill was Gil Logan, the guy that gave the speech at the North Miami campus of Johnson and Wales. No bullshit. No bullshit.
Oh my God.
And
dude.
if Ronald wouldn't have taken the job and, Gil gave the speech. And I went and worked with all the people that worked with Gil. We're a small, crazy group of chefs. And I owe a lot to those guys for, giving me the shot. I was just on I just had a conversation with my regional, my mentor from, through the years through leaving with Ron Kurbasek. We were just on the phone 2 days ago, just catching up. Hey, what have you been doing? Where are you at? The USTA starts next week, and we did 5 of those, I think. 6 of those. I did 5 or 6 of those.
Nice.
Yeah, it's been a weird, wild, and relentlessly crazy, exhilarating career.
That's incredible. I mean, normally by now in the interview, I've asked a question like, hey, when was the moment you knew food was what you wanted to do? Jesus, man. Yeah. I don't know that there's been a moment where you haven't had that happen. And it's incredible, though, how it's kind of evolved across the years, across the months, across the decade. That's insane. And then here you are. Let's shift gears a little bit, and I want to give a bit of spotlight to ECO, your culinary outfit company, clothing line for the restaurant and hospitality industry, feeling that the industry needs a brand that pushes positivity and self-improvement. I think recently we can talk about that need, and that, I think that need centers around the quote-unquote tough guy culture and how we maybe need to pull that down a little bit. Talk to me about your overall mission with ECO in your words. Obviously, I'm reading copy here. You know it, you live it, you feel it.
Well, I mean, I can't bullshit you. ECO started because I wanted some sort of outlet that would get me some sort of break, some sort of relief from not getting the salary that, let's say, was paying all the bills, right? I needed another source of income. And I was always an entrepreneur at heart, and I was like, man, what if we started a T-shirt company for chefs in the restaurant industry? And at the time, when we did this, there was no one out there. There's 2 people. There's Stove Monkey and one other spot. And then so I did my research, and we launched it. And as we were building it, things started to evolve. Did I want to just be a T-shirt company? And I saw a lot of influence because I'm a huge MMA fan.
Nice.
I've been watching UFC and mixed martial arts. I was a martial artist when I was young. And I came across Tap Out. And Tap Out was a clothing line, but it was more than that, right? It was run by Mask and Skyscrape and Punk Ass. And these guys had a TV show, I think it was on the Outdoor Channel. And they went and found fighters. And then that's just back when, the fighters could be sponsored and make money by other sponsors before Reebok took over UFC. But these guys were finding fighters and getting them signed and getting them in the UFC. And I was like, holy shit, you know what?
Yep.
That's what ECO needs to be. It's always supposed to have been something for the industry to grow from. Right. Now, granted, it hasn't, I'm not on a TV show traveling around finding chefs yet. I'm going to say yet. But,
nice.
It's been a great hobby. The shift drinks that we do on YouTube, I've gotten a lot of response from. We want to be a positive brand that when you wear our stuff, because everything we do, and I know extreme can be an overused word, but but it's really extreme dedication, extreme passion, and extreme sacrifice to make it in anything that's worth it. And I know the machismo attitude is something we've been facing head on. You work a lot, but you work a lot in just about anything that you care about. The problem is that a lot of the working wages for the hourly chefs can be low. And when you have that, it's that blue collar mentality of I'm one of the worst, right? I don't blink at working an enormous amount of hours. Like that's how you climb the ladder. That's how you came through. But I think we need to be a little bit more introspective and say, hey, does it have to be that way? And how are we going to take care of that next generation? Just because you came up that way doesn't mean that the next person needs to come up that way. So I'm trying to use ECO as a platform, as a discussion panel, as learn from my mistakes, and we're something that bonds us in a positive way. It's great to be a cook, but how are you going to get to that next level? Because you should be challenging yourself to grow.
Yeah.
And, you know, it can be the knife or the clipboard. Some days you have to take the white chef coat off and put on the suit jacket to take care of your family, to have that business meeting.
You're absolutely right.
It's a tough road, and it's not a popular stance. You know, everybody loves to say, hey, you know, cook or die. But for me, it's like, I'd rather you do both and do them well and survive.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think, and I mean, please, by all means, correct me if I am mistaken, but I think the days of romanticizing the Marco Pierre White, I'm not sure if you read his autobiography, you know, romanticizing
the Devil in the Kitchen?
Yes, holy shit. I mean, first off, legit solid read. No questions asked. Like, one of the best books I've ever read in my life. And yet, boy, if anything almost shook me away from loving, you know, the culinary, all things culinary. I had David Rosengarten, who I remember watching on the early days of Food Network, which I learned was 2 Apartments.
It was a phenomenal show.
Dude,
I love that show. One of my favorites. Favorite shows on Food Network.
No question. The BLT episode, one of the tops of all time for the technique alone.
What about when he made the tuna fish sandwich and he wrapped it in tinfoil and he said, eat it the next day?
And weren't you saying that those simple things, that's exactly what you go back to? Exactly what you go back to. So, like, you know, I think gone are the days of romanticizing the whole, you know, Marco Pierre White and, you know, chain smoking and 16-hour days and crying beyond the line. Like, no, I think we can take a David Rosengarten. I think we can take an Emeril. And admittedly, you know, Bourdain had his shit with Emeril, and they patched things up, quote unquote. You know, whatever PR machine made that happen. But it's like, I think even then, Bourdain was even trying to say, like, look, this tough guy bullshit's kind of for the birds. We're going to burn ourselves out if we don't address it. And here you are with a separate entity entirely, man, doing this. And it's such a noble cause. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. The Chef ECO of the Month is a program you guys do that basically provides, to put it bluntly, swag for nominating someone who's living that. Talk to me more about that.
So we're a family-run business. This is something that, you know, my wife came to me and she's like, look, you know, I talk to culinary schools. I teach at culinary schools when I can. I'm always trying to, like, motivate and help people through the tough times and get them the knowledge that they need. I think if you know how much a sandwich costs, you're going to do a better job selling it than, you know, trying to figure it out. She's like, we really need to focus on, she's like, it fills you with so much joy to be a mentor, right? I think we need to recognize that more. And she's like, we have a great platform. And Gino's like, what if we started a program called Chef ECO of the Month, where we recognized people that made a difference. And we're not saying like the ones that we're just regular chefs every day, ones that probably won't see the screen on a TV show, right? Where they've made a difference in a line cook or another chef's life by being a mentor and maybe helping them through a tough time or showing them how to cost out a menu or just any of that. So Chef ECO of the Month, people email in at chefeco@extremeculinaryoutfitters.com and they write a letter. And all they say is that Frank has been the best mentor in my entire, you know, career. He's helped me through this, this, and this. Or Sheila has done this, or, you know, and we go and read them and we pick one every month. And we basically say, hey, Frank, you win $150 worth of free stuff off of our website. And if your mentor is picked, you get $50 of free stuff as well. So we give away $200 worth of free swag or gear every month just to help focus on positivity in the industry.
It's incredible. That's incredible. I mean, it's incredible. It's incredibly selfless. I can't say enough about it. So they can go out to your site, extremecularyOutfitters.com, and they can find that form?
Yeah, they can go to extremecularyOutfitters.com. They can follow us on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, or Snapchat. I don't do a lot of Snapchat or Twitter right now. I'm doing mostly Instagram. It's hard to keep up as an old guy with, 4 kids and stuff, but with all the social stuff. But extremecularyOutfitters.com, we're just trying to give back. And in the beginning, we were trying to sell T-shirts and make it a brand. And I was like, it has to be more to me. That it has to mean something. Like that example shirt that we were talking about, I don't even know how many minutes ago that was, 20?
That
we did
like
with Dan Fredrickson.
Yeah.
We're giving all proceeds are going to, with Dan's choice of charities, we're donating all the proceeds to the suicide hotline. So every time we sell one of their shirts, cha-ching, money goes to suicide hotline.
That's incredible.
Just off that one shirt.
Yeah,
so,
man. I'm actually looking at your Insta post right now for that example by Dan Fredrickson Art, underscores in between those words at Dan Fredrickson Art. All net profits of each shirt purchase goes to the Suicide Prevention Lifeline, 1-800-273-8255. Obviously, that's a central core. Bourdain was, since episode 1, to be my 100th. And it's not, it's funny when you do your 100th show and it's a live show and, Grill Bitch is hanging out with you late night, 2 a.m, and you pop on the projector and you put in an old episode of No Reservations, and she starts to tell you, oh, I remember Tony was miserable there, blah, 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 blah. Because keep in mind, she was his executive assistant too. Like, you realize I think it's real easy to forget that, like, it's a Hendrix, it's a Joplin. It's basically culinary. Our Hendrix, our Joplin, our Cobain was Bourdain. And but he was a dad.
There's so many though.
Yeah,
it's not just Bourdain. It's Moto. It's the guy in Europe. I mean, there's so many of them.
Yep.
It's it's the chef that was found out that he lost a Michelin star and committed suicide. Because he went from 3 to 2, and then his wife still ran service that night.
Damn.
I mean, we're an interesting. When you have a magnificent obsession, it takes a massive amount of dedication, and it causes a lot of damage in positive ways and negative ways. Like, he has influenced so many people with his prolific words and his mannerisms and the way he talked about our industry. And I can hear it in your tone and your voice how much he resonated with you. Did you ever get a chance to meet him?
No, I did not. I've got his logo on my left shoulder, but I did not. I didn't meet him. So
yeah, and this last, we do an event every year at the Honda Center called Ducks and Tucks, where the players become chefs and they cook with you, and people pay a good deal of money. We raised this last year $500,000 for charity. All right, it's almost $500,000 in one night. And I did a table with Jet and Ali Tila on Food Network. They're big supporters at ECO, and we try to help out Team Tila anytime we can with discounts or whatever. And I said, hey, do you want to come and help raise some money for some great charities? Mm-hmm. And I typically theme out what we're going to do. And he's like, let's do a tribute to Anthony. He's like, he goes, let's do a tribute to Tony.
Yeah.
And he goes, I was on both of his shows, and he and I were, take a voicemail or an Instagram post where Tony's calling Allie and saying, I'm taking him. He's going to be with me for a while.
Uh-huh.
And you could really, just in those interactions, you see how deep and those two were connected, because we're all connected through this industry because we know what we go through.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, cops or firemen or military. All of these people that go through stressful situations together are bonded. It's an amazing and beautiful thing. But there's also a rule in my house: there's no cooks and there's no cops, because I was raised by a police officer. So I think it takes a lot of sacrifice to do both. But that's my perspective.
No, totally, and so appreciated. And again, I can't say it enough. And I have a feeling we're gonna be collaborating at somewhere down the road as well on stuff like this.
Whatever you guys need.
Yeah, it's such an important topic, and I'm so glad I had the wherewithal in a moment. I'm not sure what time of night it was that I reached out, but to have you on, to hear about this mission, to hear about all the different aspects. It's one thing to say you're a culinary clothing line. It's a whole other to say, but there's more to it, and here's how we're doing it. And God, it's great. I don't mean to steer what should be a personal interview in such a corporate direction, but you admitted you've gone corporate, so it's cool. I think we can steer you in that direction a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not. I'm jealous of the guys that are on Top Chef, and I think it's amazing that they have their own restaurants and they get to run. And I'll always, like, you and I were talking about, like, the romantic, like, how much I still think about, like, should I just go and do it? Should I do it?
Yeah.
Should I leave my keys on my desk and go open in my own place?
We got 3 kids looking down the barrel of college eventually. Like, there's no good reason we should be doing this. And we're like, well, maybe we should. Like, who's thinking that?
Yeah, who would be crazy enough? I mean, the days that I think about it, it's like, I'm like, it's exciting. But I know that I can change more lives and do more for people if I manage the business that I'm at. And I work for one of the most amazing, I worked my entire career for this job that I have. I didn't start out as the director. I started out as the executive chef, and the position came open, and I combined them, and I have a great co-director. I have an amazing team. But I have 800 to 1,000 people that work for me, at the Honda Center.
Nice.
And, we do $23 to $25 million a year in food and beverage. And I know that we're working on creating yet another culinary program. Now it's going to be a back of house and front of house, like, educational piece that's going to allow people to start in the industry and learn and grow. And I don't know if I'd be able to do that if I was trying to just, my own thing. I work for Henry and Susan Samueli, and these are, like, I work for one of the largest family-run businesses that you could ever think of. That's how I feel about it.
Damn.
And when you work for people like that, you just want to do the best possible job that you can.
No,
so
sure.
I'm very blessed. I'm very lucky.
Yeah.
And we've had our ups and downs in life, and, if you do anything in life long enough, or anything in just general, it's going to kick your teeth in.
Sure.
And you just got to get up and dust yourself off and keep pushing.
Yeah, and it sounds like that's exactly what you're doing and what you intend to continue doing with ECO and all its just incredible initiatives, as well as I feel bad. I'm like overshadowing.
I think you live it though. You live it, so you feel it. Like you doing the podcast. It's like it's a labor of love.
Oh,
it
for
is 100%
sure.
a labor of love. It's probably not putting a new car in the garage. It's definitely like, wouldn't that be awesome? Right?
Oh my God! It would.
I mean, we make enough to buy another round of hats. That's kind of how it goes.
Yep, I'd say we make enough to get another round of shirts, maybe twice a year, and I think we're good.
Yeah,
that's why we're happy.
And,
damn,
and we're happy.
Oh,
but it's hard, right? I mean, there's days. Do you question it? I know I'm now interviewing you. Do you question, like, when you're like, okay, kids, go to bed. It's time for me to jump on.
Well, here, let me turn my seat around for a moment, and I'll play guest. Well, you know what, JoJo? It's an interesting perspective to take. Yes, I question it fucking constantly. If I'm to be dead honest with you, I question it more times than not. Obviously not to be a drama queen about it, but when Bourdain passed, like, I could hear the tires screeching. I'm like, all right, that's it. End of the line, everybody out. And it was actually a phone call to Beth that morning, and I'm like, nah, all right, I think you got a couple more in you. A couple more became a couple more. But, I think it's one of those things, and I imagine that you're of the like ilk that I am, that, if you're not questioning it, you're not truly engaged in it. Like, you have to actively question to know.
Yeah, and you know what? I don't want to... And a lot of the stuff that you, like, when you're on your show or when I'm doing the podcast or even the shift drink or just making a post, I don't want to come off like it's like I'm always super positive and I always have the grind. The grind doesn't get, like, you still question it. Yeah. Even the most, I'm not Gary Vaynerchuk. I don't ever, I still question the direction I'm going. I'm not David Goggins. I mean, these guys are, so it's always, I was excited to see when I was flipping through all hundreds of, Yeah, you're over 100. I think I have like 25, and I'm like, holy shit, this guy's done 101 of these, 104 of these. Like, Jesus.
I guess we can say hundreds
my
now.
hat,
Can we say that?
toke is tipping off, man. That's awesome. Keep it up.
Nice. Well, I think the future's unwritten. There you go. That's all I guess we can say about it. So more to come, I'm sure. If you're willing to strap in for a couple afters there, sir, I'm willing to throw them your way.
I got nowhere to be.
You got nowhere to be. I got nowhere else to go. That's an Officer and a Gentleman reference.
Oh, that's a great quote.
I do what I try to really inflect
You're dating yourself. You're dating yourself.
All right, moving on.
You're going to do like the Tommy Boy quote off of it. But anyway, I love it.
Fat
what do you got?
guy in a little coat. I am standing in your kitchen, and you can pick whether it's professionally or at home. What music do I hear?
Oh, I have my own playlist, and it would be like I don't play music in the kitchen at work because people fight over what gets played, and I usually end up in the human resources office when that happens. I don't like to do that. But at home, I have my playlist that will probably start with Alabama Shakes and go into White Stripes, and it's literally titled Bourbon Drinking and Dance Around Grill Time.
Love it. Alabama Shakes, that's a tip of the hat to the childhood for you. Nicely done.
Oh, for sure. And it goes right into just, I mean, man, there's just so many. Like, I have White Stripes on there, and Dave Matthews, and Brown Skin Girl, and, like, they're just, I think I'm a big music fan. I'll find myself, like, 5-6 beers in, dinner's done, and then I'll be in the garage with a set of headphones on just singing to myself.
Yep. I am, God damn it, I am completely with you. And that whole vibe right there, man, that's... speaking to my kind of bluegrassy, Alabama Shakes to an extent, but Shaky Greaves, Mumford & Sons, that whole...
Mumford & Sons, like,
Avett Brothers.
The Night Sweats.
God, Nathaniel Rateliff. Oh, yes.
Yeah, Rateliff, Night Sweats, that's a great playlist. But then, I'll go down, I'll even do, like, Big Wild. I'll do EDM, I'll do trap. I mean, like, nice. I love rap. I'm a big jazz fan. I do love music. I'm a tortured artist at heart, I guess.
There you go. That's exactly it. Next question. You're going to be stranded on a deserted island, fictitiously, of course. You're only allowed to take 3 foods, inexhaustible supply, foods or food type items, condiments, etc., inexhaustible supplies. What would they be and why?
Oh, okay. Steak, Coors Light, and Oreo cookies.
God damn, that came out way too easily.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm a simple man.
Oh my God, that's beautiful. Man. Do you know, my wife interviewed me for 20. I have to tell you, because our answers line up a little bit. And I had interviewed her for 8, and there was this hemming, this hawing, this I don't know, kind of like packing for vacation. And she asked me, I said, beef, bourbon, and beer. Like, it wasn't even, there wasn't a beat that passed. I'm like, I can get salt from the ocean.
Yep. But for me, like, if I was stranded on an island, it has to be Coors Light, because I can drink that all day. It's almost like redneck Gatorade, as my brother and I tease each other about it. I mean, I couldn't drink, like, I love IPAs. I lived in Scotland for 3 months, and my favorite beer out of a keg is Bellhaven. Like, that's
yes.
Kind of, I'm like, that is, like, but if you're going to drink all day and it's going to be beer, I need it to be light. And since, Coors, I know everybody's going to rag on me. I could probably do PBR, but if I want to see if the mountains are blue. You know what I mean?
I hear you. Yeah, you've got to have that cold indicator to know that it's as
so
cold as...
silly, too, but it's so silly, but yeah, and Oreo cookies for me is just like it's a treat. Like, I still get excited when I'm driving home, and I'm like, oh man, I think I'm gonna have 8 Oreo cookies and a bunch of milk and go to bed all full, and I'm still a child.
Oh, that's so tight. I love it. I love it. Have you had the opportunity to check out My Last Supper by Melanie Danea?
No.
Okay, so she is a photojournalist / I want to say documentarian from New York, and she did My Last Supper and The Next Course. Each book, coffee table book, big monster book, featured 50 chefs and they're answers to a uniform set of questions, very similar to the format I have laid out here. And they all centered around your ticket's getting punched tomorrow. What's your last meal? What do you have? What do you drink? Who's there? So I ask you, Chef, what's your last meal?
My grandmother's gumbo.
Nice. I knew it. Love it.
Yeah, like without a doubt.
Without a shadow of a doubt. I adore that.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like it's real food.
Yeah.
And it's simple.
And it's from the heart. It's from the soul. It's from everything.
Yeah.
God.
And, I asked a similar question, like, what chef would you want to have dinner with? And I think if I knew it was getting punched, man, I'd just want to sit down and have dinner with my wife and kids.
Yep. I hear that, man. I hear that. That's funny, because actually my answer was I want to eat alone. And it's weird sitting across from your wife in a timeshare in Mexico and answering that and
when
watching.
You say that,
oh my God, her eyes went wide, her mouth dropped
wow.
open. I said, "Hold on, let me explain." And I just explained. I'm like, "Look, if it's my last day, I don't want you to be worrying about me. I don't want you to be sweating. Just let's wrap it." But like, at the same time, I think every time I hear somebody like yourself answer that way, I'm like, you know what? I think I got that one wrong. So on my own interview, how do I do that?
Well, I mean, I've spent many a nights, even with some of the closest people, still eating alone.
Yeah.
So I think after some definite soul searching over the few years, like, you realize what the job takes, and sometimes you just go, man, you can't get time back.
No, that's true.
And for me, like, the next, I'm turning 45, like, on Friday. And I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? I got a kid that started his college first day today, and, we go from 19 to 9 right now. That's our spread over the 4.
Wow.
Yeah. And we've lived it. We've definitely lived in the past 2 years pretty aggressively, like where, our 9-year-old was diagnosed with cancer like 2 years ago, and it was earth shattering. And then you're like, you start reminiscing, like, how much time did you miss with your oldest son, and how many practices did you miss, and was it worth it? And you go, okay, now you finally kind of found yourself a career. You find this is your balance, because balance is something that we all strive for. Probably 5-6 years ago, I would have said something like, I want to have another dinner with Emerald, and I want Julia Child to be there, and I want to let them have my grandmother's gumbo so they can know what it tastes like.
Yeah.
But I think in my older age, not as wise yet, but I would just want to sit down with the family one more time.
God, look at you wrapping up with the heavy. Damn, man. Come
on.
on.
Well, I'm a heavy guy.
All right. We're pulling it up. We're all going to...
we can do it again someday, and I'll finish with a light joke.
We're going to... Oh, God, we're going to hug this out or punch each other in the shoulder right now. Okay.
Yeah, we can do that.
No, and you're spot on, and... for everybody who, asks you why you do what you do, asks me why I do this, show with what little spare time I have, man, it's that point right there. It's that the meal at the table is something that brings everyone together, and that brings everybody who, truly means the world to you together. So with that in mind, our last question, what is food to you in one word?
Life.
Love it. Love it. Everything comes from it. Everything, your greatest memories, I'm sure, are somewhere, like, there's at least a food aspect to it.
Oh, dude, I can't even say I can't even introduce myself without talking for 20 minutes. But, like, when we finished, I worked all day, and I started cooking I had to do the food for Dana, like, and his table for the UFC, right?
That's Dana White, people. If you're not paying attention, that's Dana freaking White.
On first name basis now. That's a joke. But he was extremely cordial and nice. He was actually really nice to the staff and to myself. But we finished up last week. We had a music festival for 20,000 people 2 days in a row. We had to build it. Then we had to get ready for UFC. The day before, we had USA basketball. And then a lot of the product I had to go and source and get ready for Dana, and some of it didn't come in, so we had to run out and get it. And I was behind the 8 ball all day. I was dragging ass. I was in the weeds. It was really a rough day. And this old man, is, usually overseeing, but he was inside the kitchen getting down like he was young again. And we got done. I got home around 2:15. I think I went to bed around 3:30. I got up, and my 19-year-old son and two of his best friends share birthdays in the same week, and we had 18 kids over to celebrate their birthday, and I made paella all day.
Damn.
And I felt like a train hit me from 11 to 3.
I'm sure.
But, I was listening to my little playlist, drinking a couple of beers, and I was cooking, and the kids were happy. And to me, every family function that we've ever had has revolved around food. And it is life. It is kind of who I am.
I love
that. They're not separated. I'm the guy that runs the T-shirt company. I'm the same guy that talks at the culinary school. I'm the same chef and director that sells hot dogs and a lot of cold beer that can make a high-end meal. I'm also the dad that right before we jumped on was taking his kids to practice or dropping them off. That's who we all are in the business, and I think that's part of why food is life for me.
I'm going to let that mic drop, man. There's nothing I can add to that, and I cannot express from both the show and from myself personally, first of all, just a profound and deep thank you for what Extreme Culinary Outfitters is doing. But more than that, well, not more than that, but in the same way, man, thank you for taking the time to do the show tonight. It's been an absolute blast, and I don't think this is the last time our paths cross.
I definitely hope not, man. Thanks for reaching out. It was my pleasure. Hopefully one day we'll have some donut beer and film it at the same time and do a Leave It on the Line.
Leave It on the Line.
Full circle.
I will
go full circle.
I'll either fly out or we'll do it virtual. So, man, thank you again so much. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been episode number 104 of the Coarse Grind Podcast. With me this evening, just the incredible Chef Jo-Jo Doyle of Extreme Culinary Outfitters. You can check them out at extremecularyOutfitters.com. YouTube, Facebook presence out the wazoo, at Extreme Culinary, no space, for Twitter and Insta. Be sure to check out Shift Drinks, Leave It on the Line, and if you know someone who has had just an incredibly positive influence on you as a chef or as a cook in the industry, as I know so many of you are, be sure to check out their Chef ECO of the Month program. Again, share that goodness, because without sharing, we're standing still. And again, JoJo, thank you so much, brother, for being here. Really appreciate it.
It is my pleasure. Thank you so much.
You got it, man. Our producer, as always, has been the lovely, voluptuous, and svelte Johnny Leland Robinson, a.k.a. the Reverend Johnny Lamoria. Be sure to check out all his libertarian, steampunk, and fringe culture happenings in the 18431. Next episode will be number 105, not to foreshadow anything, but it might be a knockout. Ha! Stay tuned.
Hey, do you like coffee? Do you like gourmet coffee? Do you like really amazing gourmet coffee that's a total steal and just happens to be based on a culinary podcast? Well, look no further. The Coarse Grind Podcast has teamed up with the Mr. G Coffee Company to create the perfect custom blend. Dark as the logo itself, with hints of caramel, sea salt, and dark chocolate. It is luxury in a cup at an incredible price. Be sure to check out their site today, MrGCoffee.com, and order some now.